Welcome to Austin Tech Connect, the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. Presented to you by NetSpend. Homegrown in Austin, NetSpend has been a leading provider of consumer and business payment solutions for almost 25 years. From prepaid cards to mobile bank accounts to money movement services, NetSpend connects people, brands, and payment products to deliver innovative financial solutions.
Welcome to Austin Tech Connect, the podcast about the future of Austin's technology community. My name is Tom Singer, and I am the CEO of the Austin Technology Council, a 30-year-old organization that focuses on helping the technology community grow and thrive in Austin, Texas. And every week on this podcast, we engage with local leaders to hear their stories of success, to get their advice on how we can thrive, and take a peek into their crystal ball about the future of Austin. And today I'm excited because we are joined by my friend, Joyce Durst. Joyce, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom. I'm really happy to be here. Always love chatting with you.
Well, Joyce, for those of you who don't know her, is the CEO and co-founder of Growth Acceleration Partners, also known as GAP. And she is one of the few women who has bootstrapped a tech company to over $60 million. Yeah, that's a big company, and it's still growing. They focus on helping big companies with their software and analytics issues, and they help those companies grow bigger through using technology. So Joyce, you've been in technology your whole career.
Yeah, absolutely. A really long time now. It's amazing the things that we've seen. I won't say your age or mine, but we've seen a lot of changes in tech, and that speed of change is just accelerating. So I love being in this space.
So you were an engineering major back at Texas A&amp, and not to say anybody's age, but there weren't a lot of women in engineering back then. So let's go in that way back machine to your time at Texas A&amp and beyond. What was it like to major in engineering, and where did you go from there?
Yeah, it's funny. I in high school, I excelled at science and math, and I loved those subjects because I felt like at the end of an exercise, before the teacher graded it, you already knew whether or not the answer was right? The numbers add up or they don't. And it wasn't always that way when you're doing literature or other things less scientific. So I love science and math. So it was never a question to me as to what I was going to major in. When I got to my very first engineering class at A&M of about 250 people, and I counted, there were 7 women. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't know why there aren't more women in this class. So it was kind of a big surprise to me that not everyone wanted to go major in engineering.
So after A&M, where'd you go?
While I was at A&M, I did this thing called co-op. I put myself through school. I'm first person in my family to have ever gone to college. And so while at A&M, I traded off semesters and would go work as part of this co-op program. And one of the companies I worked for was IBM. Tremendous experience. And so when I graduated, they gave me a job offer. I immediately accepted and then spent the next 5-6 years at IBM. Great place to start your career.
Nice. Well, and so many people in technology here in Austin did get their start with IBM and a handful of other companies that led them to spin out. So you started off at IBM. What were you doing? What was your early roles in your career?
I started out as a systems engineer. So, basically got to use all my engineering consulting skills to work with clients to do much like we're doing today, really advise clients on how to use technology. Of course, only IBM technology at the time, but how to use technology to further their business objectives. And I loved that. I loved getting to be on the customer side and the technical side.
Well, and I first met you, I think, and I'm trying to rack my brain. I think you were then with BMC Software. Is that correct?
I think that's exactly right.
Wow,
that's right.
That was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, sir. And I went from IBM straight to BMC, which at the time we called BMC IBM South, because so many people at BMC had been recruited out of IBM. I had the same manager that I had at IBM. A lot of my coworkers were there. So it was a very easy transition. But that really put me on a different kind of career path. So I started there as a systems engineer, as a consultant, really building out their consulting practice. But over the next 12 years, moved to run marketing, both inbound and outbound marketing, and then moved to run a development team here in Austin, Texas. That was how I got to Austin. So while, at IBM and at BMC, I got to be in sales, in marketing, and in development. So it really kind of broadened my view about, the different aspects of a company and what you might need to know if you ever wanted to run a company.
You bring up a really interesting point, and that was, BMC was sort of IBM South. So many people had been recruited out of IBM, and you had the same manager and stuff like that. This is something we forget sometimes today, I think, is how important your network is inside the company you're working. We hear about networking, and of course, I've written books on said subject, but lots of times it's focused on how do you get more sales? How do you grow the company? How do you grow reputation and brand? How do you find a job? We don't think about the networking inside the company and how important those connections are that you have with coworkers, especially now that we've gone to a world with so much hybrid and remote. A lot of people don't even seem to think it matters if they have a relationship with their coworkers. But you're not the first person to tell me that, hey, my big break that changed the direction of my career and set me up for what I'm doing today came from somebody I worked with at Company One brought me to Company Two. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that internal networking and people bringing opportunities.
Well, absolutely. And not just, getting me, which I was thankful for, from IBM to BMC, but even within BMC, being able to build that network, if you were it's hard for me to imagine, honestly, Tom, in an all remote environment, someone like me, and I look like I was 12. I know I don't now, but I did then.
Now you look 14 now, though, so it's okay.
Thanks. So, but when I was working and I had been, in consulting for a while, and I said, well, I really want to go over there and learn this. I want to learn about marketing. I don't know anything about that. And if you had been in an all remote environment and none of those people, if I hadn't had the chance to interact with them and get to build a relationship with them, I can't imagine that they would say yes. Because what they should have said was, Joyce, you don't know anything about marketing. Like, you know nothing.
You majored in engineering.
Engineering.
Stay over there.
We can hire a lot of smart people who actually majored in marketing, and they'll do that. But instead they said, you've done a great job over here. You know the company, you know the customer. We're going to give you a chance. And then when I was in marketing, I did the same thing about development. Hey, I've never run a development organization. I'd really like to go see how that part of the machine works. But yeah, it's really about building relationships, one-on-one, and asking, always being a continual learner and asking a lot of great questions and really having that thirst for wanting to know how various parts of the company works that allows anyone, I think, to have a lot more options put in front of them than somebody who's just going to stay, working at their kitchen table at home and never lift your head up. That's the one thing you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. I get bored easily. So every few years, I kind of needed to do something different, even if it's in the same company.
So what advice do you have for some young up-and-comer, no matter what discipline they're in, if they want to grow and expand, but they are in this remote world? How do they even build those relationships today?
Well, I do think that the generations coming up are much more adept than we are at building relationships over online, and through texting and Zoom and whatever the medium is. But I would strongly encourage all up and comers to go ahead and set up, hey, I just want to have somebody in a different department. Can I have 15 minutes of your time? And let's just talk about what's going on in your area, the company. What challenges do you see? What are, how do you plan to overcome them? And just be out there being, kind of a place that's a person who's known for wanting to gain an understanding the other parts of the company. Maybe you'll have a good idea that you can help them. Maybe you'll know someone that can help them, just be reciprocal in that, in terms of sharing information and asking for information. And do that, even if those people, absolutely do that if those people are outside of your one narrow lane of focus.
So then after BMC, what was the next step?
After BMC, I had done for all of my career at this point, which was not quite 20 years, about 17 years or so, I had only been in really large companies. BMC was a multi-billion-dollar company. IBM, of course, was a behemoth. And I really was ready to try my hand of running a company myself. So I accepted a position as a CEO of a venture-backed, my first experience with venture as a venture-backed startup here in Austin, Texas, a security software company, white hot space. And I just jumped right in there and said, okay, here I am. I'm ready. I had been running. I was in charge of BMC, a $250 million division that was growing by leaps and bounds. I had, 1,000 plus people in a lot of countries. So I thought, oh, I'm totally ready to go run a startup.
And were you totally ready to go run a startup?
Absolutely not. I mean, some people call them failures in that methodology of fail fast. I don't like to ever be a failure, so I call them experiments. But I had so many failed experiments, you could hardly keep track of them. Every mistake that a startup CEO could make, I am sure I made in that learning process of how to be at a company that size. But invaluable experience that I translated to Growth Acceleration Partners when I founded that. And we've made different mistakes, of course, but we've been profitable since the very first month. So I learned a lot from my 6 years at a venture-backed startup.
This episode is brought to you by James Avery Jewelry. James Avery Jewelry is a multi-channel retailer offering finely crafted jewelry designs for men and women. More than 90% of their pieces are crafted in the Texas Hill Country, and James Avery has a regional headquarters in the Austin area. They operate over 110 James Avery stores in 4 states, and their jewelry is also available at jamesavery.com. Thank you to James Avery Jewelry for their support of this podcast. So before we jump into Gap and growing that company, what are some of the lessons for people who want to leave a behemoth company, a big tech giant, to go to work, even if they're not going into the CEO role, even if they're going into some other role, jumping into that startup world? What are some of the things that people should have their radar on if they're going to make that leap?
Yeah, I think there's 3 big areas. There's a million things, but the things that are really dramatically different from being in large company land, resources in big company land, I had a $58 million expense budget. Okay. Well, when you get to startup land, you don't have a $5 expense budget, so really learning how to be so focused on the cash, and preserving it and extending it so you can extend your runway as long as possible. It's a completely different mindset. And, the first time as a CEO, you turn around and go, well, who's going to go put together that PowerPoint presentation we need for this big customer? And everybody looks at you like, you are? And you're like, I'm going to go put together that PowerPoint presentation. Got it. So you just have to get your mind in a whole place of like, hey, every day we're going to dig in the dirt. We're going to use all our resources. We're just going to work together as a team, and everyone, there's no titles, is going to do exactly what needs to be done to advance us another day. So I think resources is one. The second one, which was the hardest lesson for me, first one wasn't too hard. This lesson was so painful for me, which is right people, right seat. And in a big company, if someone's struggling, or they're just not quite getting it, in a big company, you go, I'm going to get them a coach. I'm going to get them a mentor. I'm going to put them on the 6-month training plan. I'm going to surround them with all these resources. If that doesn't work, I got 4 other places in the company I can move them. In a startup, that is not a luxury you have. Every day that you don't have the right people in the right seats, you are reducing the number of days your company is going to make it. And you're putting so much pressure and anguish and stress on all the rest of the people to make up for that person's on the right person, right seat. So you have to make those decisions very, very quickly. Not the right person. There's a ton of jobs in Austin. This one's not the right one. So I'd say people, right person, right seat was a second thing. And then the third thing is really that networking for the purpose of you are always raising money. So you are always have to be building your external network in a startup every day, every minute, and be thinking about, hey, does this person know someone else that has a connection to another angel or a PE firm, depending on your stage, whatever that is. So always be networking and selling and thinking about fundraising. I think those 3 things dramatically different that you don't have if you're, you have a different set of pressures if you're an exec in a big company.
Sure, absolutely. Well, now I want to get into growth acceleration partners, because you started this company 16 years ago. And like you said, you're one of the few women who has grown a technology company to over $60 million in revenue. And that's something to be very proud of. So let's talk about these 16 years and where you started the company and where it is today.
Thanks. And I have one, I'll just go ahead and be upfront about this. For anyone else that's about to start a company, never name it something as long as Growth Acceleration Partners. Oh my God. You think saying it 100 million times, just try typing it that's your email address for the rest of your life.
Yeah, the Austin Technology Council is austintechnologycouncil.org. And it's like every time I have to type in my email address, I think, wow, we could have had a shorter name.
I know, exactly. So you have to think about these things, plan for success. So when we started, my co-founder, Brett Bachman, brilliant man, retired, I guess, about 6 years ago from the company. But we just wouldn't be where we are today had he and I not started this thing together. Our focus was really on, it sounds funny, but we really wanted to have a place, an environment where employees really wanted to come to work every day. Like there were no hostage situations. We were all passengers on this same train. And they're like, I'm so challenged. They're investing in me. They care about me and my family. This is where I want to go and really do great engineering work every day. And then the same on the customer side. We had this thing that we call customers for life and employees for life. And we don't view that as an obligation on the other side. We view that as an obligation on us, on that we have to create that kind of environment every day that customers want to work with us and they continue to work with us for years and years and years. I have customers, Tom, that have been with us literally for 14 years.
Wow.
And a whole bunch of customers that have been here 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. And employees the same way. I mean, I have employees that I'm like, how could you have already been here 14 and 15 years? That is amazing. But that's on, that responsibility falls on me every single day to say, hey, that's what we're trying to build here.
I love that attitude of both customers and employees for life. And like you said, hey, that's not on them.
No, right.
They're not indentured servants. They're free to go if they need to do that. But the fact that you look at it is, what can I do to keep these customers? And in today's world, even more impressive, what can I do to treat these employees and give them opportunities for growth so that they can be here for the rest of their career? That's not something I hear from every CEO, and it's certainly not something we see put into practice. So let's look at the employee side. What goes into practice from the things you have to do to be able to create a culture for, hey, I'm working to keep these people forever? What's different for you to have that attitude?
I think the thing that helped Brett and me as we started this is that we're both engineers. And so we thought, well, what would we like? Right. Well, I would like an environment where I'm really allowed to learn and stay up to date with technologies and solve creative problems. And my voice is really heard. If I say this project's not working, we need to improve these processes, then someone takes that to heart and they go do something about it. And so that's part of it. I think for engineers, that's really, really important. And, on the other side, you got to have all the right benefits. We've long before the pandemic, we already had a mix of work from home and come to the office and be with your team. And we leave that to the teams to decide what the right kind of balance is. Most teams come in about 1 day a week. Some teams come in 2 days a week, but that's up to them. There's no policy about that. And then, we recognize that there's not just a person with hands on a keyboard, right? They have parents and children and family members, and sometimes there's issues, and we're like, yeah, you have to take care of those things. So I think just, treating a human being as a complete human being, not just as a worker bot, and asking them, and I ask every single person at Gap, give me one idea of something we could do better. Have you ever worked anywhere that's better? What did they do? Tell me that thing. And anyone that ever leaves to pursue a new exciting thing in their life, first I congratulate them, and then I ask them, hey, where did we come up short? What else could we have done? And I think by me personally taking that stance, other people think, hey, that's not just talk. It's actually important.
So have you had people leave and then come back?
Oh yeah. We have a bunch of those, and I tell them, I write them a note. Hey, the door's open. I hope that you go learn. I know you're going to do great things out there. I hope you go learn some amazing stuff, and then I hope you come back, and we'll be here.
So you and I have talked about this in other venues. You also really believe in having diversity in your teams, and diversity means a lot of things. It means experience, obviously. It means age and race and gender, et cetera. But why is that so important to a successful team? And when you look at diversity, what does that mean?
Well, so building on what you just said, diversity to me means diversity. And so that means gender, that means age, that means culture, that means economic background, educational level. It means as much different perspective as you can cram into a room at any one time. That's what we try to do again, we're a tech company, so it's a little bit unusual. 63% of my executive team is female. 60% of my engineering leadership team is female.
Wow.
That is highly unusual. And we don't go search to do that. We just try to put the right people in the right seat. Why is that so important is if you're building products for large companies in the United States, and those products are going to be used by all kinds of people, young people, old people, men, women, technical, non-technical. It's really good on the product team if you're building those solutions to have that kind of diversity in there. This is a simple example, which is still to this day frustrating for me. I don't know where the headrest is in your car. But I can tell you where it is in my car, and it's about 6 inches taller than my stature will ever allow me to use.
And it's interesting because in my car, it's like 4 inches too low because I'm 6'3". So same thing.
Oh, yes.
They weren't designing it for either one of us.
Exactly. So, but if they'd had a really diverse team of people building that, then somebody would have said, oh no, this is I'm too tall, or I'm too short, or whatever. But all products are like that. If we want products to be used by the widest range of the audience, we need to have diversity of thought in there, in the building and testing of all those things. And, we're in the solutions business. So diversity counts.
So tell us about your clients today and where the company's headed.
Clients today, our clients kind of fall into three categories. Although the third one, you're going to say I'm cheating. The first one is health tech. So we build a lot of health tech stuff. The second one is fintech. Also great. In Austin community, there's a ton of fintech. And then the third one, which is the cheating category, we have a lot of very large customers that I would say are hundreds of millions of dollars to a few $1 billion, and they are just enterprise SaaS companies. So they're kind of technology-enabled services, and we tend to work on the platforms that connect the company to their customers or to revenue. Mm-hmm. So wherever they view is the creation of intellectual property, custom IP, that tends to be where Gap works.
Nice. And what do you see as the future of the company? What are you building towards?
Well, we're at 60 million. I'd like to within 3 years be at 100. So we grew at 40+% the last 2 years. There's no limit to the amount of need for technology solutions just forever. So I'm very excited, very, very excited about the future. We completed our first acquisition in February. And that was of a product company that was 29 years old and had patents and IP and product that automatically modernizes really, really, really old technology. Think of really old ASP.NET or Visual Basic or things we didn't know were still around, and modernizes it into a new language like .NET or Java or React or something. And so we saw that as a great addition to get lots more companies kind of in as Gap customers that then we can take to really fully take those applications to the cloud. So the future is really bright.
Nice. Well, we hope for great things in the future. So thank you. You've been around Austin a long time, and you've been around Austin Tech a long time, and you've been actually very involved in the community. You've been involved with a lot of different organizations. You've supported a lot of different groups. Why is it important for a CEO like yourself and senior executives in a company to be involved with organizations like the Chamber of Commerce or the Austin Technology Council, et cetera, et cetera? Why does it even matter? I mean, a lot of people tell me, I'm too busy. I can't give back.
Yeah. Well, I think that we should all care about the growth of this region in Central Texas. And as you mentioned, ATC and the Chamber and Opportunity Austin, there's a number of groups out there are very focused on making sure not only do we have the right economic development in this region, but you have the things that support economic development, which is affordability of housing, which is mobility and transportation. So we have roads we could actually kind of drive around on, so they're workforce development. So they're actually employees that we can all hire. Every single CEO should get involved in ATC, get involved somewhere, ATC or the Chamber or something, because the future of your company depends on you having a strong workforce, which is here, and they have a affordable place to live, places for their kids to go to school, transportation we can all get around. It's really the future of our companies that depend on us being the leaders, caring about the growth of this region.
So Joyce, as we record this, it's the first part of April. It'll come out towards the end of April, but it's 2023. There's still a lot of uncertainty about the economy and the tech economy. So if you put on your crystal ball, what do you think is the future, short-term and long-term, for Austin Tech?
Well, long term, I think there's zero doubt that the future for Austin Tech and Central Texas, because right now it's hard to kind of say what Austin is and what Georgetown and Buda and San Marcos. So, but this region is still exploding. And I am involved, as part of some of my volunteer work with the Chamber, I see the number of calls that are still coming in every day from startups and from bigger companies wanting to relocate here. So the future could not be brighter. Now, is 2023 going to be rocky for tech? Oh, yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah. And hopefully all of you CEOs out there have done appropriate scenario planning with your team that you're prepared for not only just good years, but also bad years. It's definitely going to be rocky. I think big companies have laid off, big tech companies have laid off almost 300,000 people in the last 6 months. That has an impact. Mm-hmm. The banking thing has an impact. But my crystal ball says, hey, by the end of this year, we get into 2024, we're going to start to already see another up year.
Nice. So Joyce, thank you so much for your support of ATC. You've been really supportive of me since I took on this role and many other things in the community. As we wrap this up, I love to ask everybody this question. It's my favorite part. I believe personally that community, collaboration, and conversations together can solve all problems. When I say those three words, community, collaboration, conversations, which one resonates the most with you and why?
Oh, Tom, it's such a hard question. I knew you were going to ask this question. I've heard this asked before because I do think they're all so intertwined. And Austin, one of the things I think Austin excels over any other community I've ever been in is really the combination of these three, which is really about building relationships. But if I have to pick one, I'll say collaboration, because I think the more that we work together on solving some of the issues in front of us, the more that we work together to partner, to go after bigger opportunities, the stronger we all are.
Nice. Well, Joyce, thank you so much for being a guest here on Austin Tech Connect. Any final words?
No, I thank you for serving in this role with ATC. One of the reasons I think Austin has a very bright future is you and your leadership. So I'm excited to see where you take us.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened. You know what? Think about this for a minute. Is your company a member of the Austin Technology Council? And if not, why not? Now is a great time to support this organization as we're looking to the next 10, 20, and 30 years of where this organization can serve the community. You know, if we're going to be a grassroots community, we can't do it without the grassroots, which means we need your organization. We would welcome your involvement, and we want your voice to be added to the conversations that we're having about the future. So make sure that you, whoever it is listening right now, gets your company to join the Austin Technology Council. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Joyce Durst for being our guest, and we will see you next week with another amazing interview with somebody else here in our community who's making things happen.
Thanks for listening to the Austin Tech Connect podcast. Make sure your company is a member of the Austin Technology Council and add your voice to the future of our tech ecosystem in Central Texas.